For joining us today. We're going to be going over the Grant Plus solution. So with a brief introduction on ePerformance, who we are, and then the Grant Plus system demo. So we'll show kind of a demonstration and some videos of the functionality of the solution, and then we can answer any questions if there are any. And which reminds me, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat throughout the presentation. We'll do our best to answer those in lockstep. So yeah, next slide, please. So a little bit about us. We are ePerformance, and we've been around the grant space and the government solution space for 20 plus years. We promote best practices in grants management solutions as well as others, but one of our primary focuses is grants and the automation of grants. We're recommended, and we have a close relationship with Microsoft for our grant solutions. So they offer our services to their clients, and we appreciate that trusted partnership. And our staff is certified Microsoft professionals, and most, if not all, of our staff has certifications within Microsoft itself. So that's good. What is Grant Plus? So Grant Plus is a cloud-based software application. It's predominantly centered around the Microsoft D365 platform, as well as Power Platform, and that supports the automation of government grants management. So basically, it provides a full range of functionality for grants, end to end. You name it, we've seen it over the years, and there's many different solutions and features that we have embedded in the solution, like things for the application process, amendments to the application, review and approval of those applications, the agreements of that, the administration of the funds, tracking of the performance, and a full suite of reporting and dashboards as well. It's designed predominantly for the Canadian government and with the Canadian government. We'll get to that on the next slide. So it aligns with the Treasury Board standards and best practices for evolving grants program delivery. So we worked closely with many different departments within the Government of Canada to establish this model. You can kind of see the example model on the right-hand side, and we had kind of a seat at the table in aligning with this delivery mechanism. So it aligns with the annual action plans for grants and contributions automation, and it aligns with the 8A model for grants and contributions, which was derived from the Australian model and the US government models. And it's being now used within Canada as well for many of the different grants departments across the federal level as well as provincial and municipal. So the solution really has two typical delivery models that we like to focus on. The first one is software as a service. That is basically, we as ePerformance handle everything for you. We conduct the implementation phase. We implement the system for you. We host your environment. We control and moderate the users and the licensing. And we also provide a service level agreement, an SLA, a customer success level agreement, so that we can monitor and maintain any issues, any changes that you'd like throughout the process. So that's one way. And then the second way is it's completely hosted by the client or the department, and we implement. Sorry, I'm getting a little feedback. One sec. And we implement, one sec, please. And we handle the implementation, and basically we do the implementation, we ship it over to the department, they manage and maintain their users and their licensing, and the customer success then falls to us as well. So yeah, those are the two typical models that we like to focus on. However, we can be flexible in whatever the needs of the group is. Oh, next slide, please. So some examples of this. So our first example is the National Research Council for the Killam program. Basically, NRC came to us. They had a very tight timeline to launch a grants program, an automated grants solution. We were able to kind of meet with them, figure out what their needs were, make sure that our solution was a good fit for them. That kind of first phase was the go ahead to launch the program. So in short order, we got our solution up and running for them. We then kind of worked with them on their application form, so the door into their system. We established that with them. Then we went through the kind of the decision model and their program life cycle, made sure that we had an answer for all of their questions there, and implemented what they'd like to see for that. And then we kind of circled back on the whole solution, made sure that they were comfortable with the user experience and the process flow, made some slight tweaks to make sure that they were getting everything that they needed, and then we launched the program in a matter of weeks, which was a big success for us. And this, referring back to the examples that we had before, this was the software as a service example. So we host the solution for them, and we add new users, we control their licensing, and we have that SLA that I mentioned previously. The next example is Sustainable Development Technology Canada. So this would be an example of the second option that we mentioned before, which is we handled the implementation phase and we're there to support them, but they handle their user onboarding, their solution, adding to it, and if they have any questions, concerns, comments, they go through our support, and we coach them through what we would do if we were in their shoes. So this was a big implementation. They launched 2 programs on our solution. We again took a phased approach. We moved over one of their existing grant programs from their legacy system onto our platform, made sure that we took advantage of any of the new or different features that we'd offered out of the box and transferred those over. And then we kind of focused on their second program and launching that. And it was a big success, and again, an example of the second model that we mentioned beforehand. So there's really 2 typical packages that we do as well. And so there's the program level, which, referring back to our examples, is more the NRC, the Killam program, which is one program. Basically, it's a single grant or contribution program. They have one kind of a single application form. They have a review process for that application form, and it kind of just follows the life cycle for that one program. And then there's, of course, the enterprise level, which is multiple programs, which is kind of more towards the SDDC example, where there's multiple programs all feeding into one system. And being able to report across different programs, seeing the different dashboards, seeing where the funding is located, all of that stuff. So you can see kind of the difference between the two models. So one being bigger than the other, one being kind of a shorter onboarding process than the other, but we can kind of handle any sort of implementation of this size, whether it be small and need to get onboarded quickly, or a large enterprise solution that will take many years to kind of establish, or anywhere in between. So yeah, moving to the next slide. I'll hand this over to Divya to take us through a few of the feature overviews and then the demonstration.
Thank you, Michael. So for what I'll start with is just introducing you to the what Grant Plus involves. So there's the option to get the funding from the applicants or the public. And then there's the back office where the program officer looks at the applications, does the assessment and administration aspect of things. So the first thing is the Grant Plus intake portal. So this is where it's the public facing portal, and where users can register, log in, put in their funding requests that flow through into an application cycle, which I'll walk you through as well. And then there are options also in terms of setting up reviewers who can also log into the portal, look at the applications and do their reviews online versus having to do it offline or having to get it done through emails and things like that. That covers the intake portal. And then there's the program back office. So Michael had walked you through the GNC model in one of the slides. So it kind of sets up the background for the overall end-to-end processing of the application cycle. So we start with outreach, we get leads and opportunities set up, we do the intake through the portal for the applications, which can also be done from the back office. Then the assessment is done of those applications to see whether it makes sense to go ahead with the funding, to not go ahead with the funding, to get amendments done. And then project budgets and payments and agreements are set up. The case file goes into the administration phase where the payments are made. And then there's the program administration in terms of monitoring the funding, getting the reports in terms of how the funding is being used, and things like that are set up. All can be set up in the back office through the Power Apps CRM app. For the key business areas that we usually focus on and we'd like to walk you through today is program management. So programs or funding opportunities, either one or multiple can be set up at the same time. They can all either be fixed period, they can be continuous where they don't have an end date. And there are multiple program elements which are really flexible and really easy to set up and configure in terms of getting business rules set up, documentation rules. There is a number of read-only and editable elements that can be set up. So a lot of it can be done based on what the program needs. Then there's the application intake, which I'd already talked about through the portal, which is usually set up bilingual for most programs, especially since it's Canada. We do the English and French portal translations. And then there's the eligibility check. So most programs have an eligibility set of eligibility criteria that need to be confirmed before an applicant can put in and submit a form. So there's a bunch of options in terms of configuring that eligibility criteria per program, and then also setting up the application forms per program so that they can all be common, they can all be different. It depends on what the program and the department needs in terms of that funding. Once that application comes through, the program administrators or officers look at the application themselves, see whether they have all the information required, if an amendment is needed and it needs to be sent back to the applicant. And then decision phases are set up where each decision flows through a certain criteria, and then the funding is either accepted or it's rejected. And then emails can be set up to be triggered so that the applicants and any other program officers, for example, need to know about the decision that's been made. Then there's the administration. So now once the funding is approved, for example, we can set up payment schedules, we can set up requisition steps that need to be enabled, and then follow through in terms of setting up monitoring scorecards. There's also dashboards and reports that can be set up, and I can show you that as well. So some of the main challenges that we've heard over the years in terms of setting up granting programs is there's a lot of intake and assessment of multiple funding requests that come in at the same time, and it kind of creates an administrative burden because it can be overwhelming in terms of setting it up and managing all of them, and quite expensive for that matter to be managing all of that in terms of capacity, in terms of resources and things like that. And a lot of application processes also end up still being done through paper. So when we were looking at setting up Grant Plus, a lot of that can be streamlined in Grant Plus through the online portal, through setting up business rules, so that, and it being online on the cloud, there's less cumbersome administrative burden, and a lot less paperwork. Then there's also the fact that 80% of the data in grants programs come from the submission form. So the application that's coming in through the applicant funding requests, that can all that is not always streamlined when it comes to the different programs or the department trying to set it up. So in Grant Plus, because of the high rate of configurability, it becomes a lot easier to set up those programs, set up those submission forms online, so that the burden or the administrative burden in streamlining those programs becomes less. And then there's the uh, fact that a lot of the grant programs are unique. They produce a lot of data and reports in terms of management and forecasting, and it ends up being a low investment on automation. So using Grant Plus, a lot of that can be streamlined and it can be reduced in terms of capacity usage and also increase in efficiency. Similar to kind of what I was alluding to in the previous slide. So there's a lot of benefits of using Grant Plus. Grant Plus solution is built on Power Apps, so which is called a low code platform. I mean, there is some coding depending on what the program needs or what needs to be configured from a client perspective, but a lot of it is easily configurable. The scalability of having that configured on the cloud also allows for multiple programs and multiple forms to be set up at the same time. And then programs and departments can have different business models. So if there's a business model in terms of how the decision flows, but that's different from one department to the next. Again, it's Grant Plus has a high rate of um, um, uh, rate of configurability, I should say, in terms of setting up those decision models, because each department can have its own decision model set up. So then, or if it's a common model, you can also use the common model, and it's something that doesn't really need a lot of coding. It's something that can be easily set up in terms of what the department needs. Then there's the full Microsoft Dynamics 365 integration. Because it's a Dynamics Microsoft platform, it has the integration capability with Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Office, SharePoint, etc. But if there are non-Microsoft tools that need to be integrated with in the system, we also have something called as a Power Automate that enables the easy integration between tools like DocuSign, financial systems like SAP, Oracle, address complete, for example, in terms of getting address from the Canada Post API, things like that. So there's a lot of different options there as well. As I mentioned before, it does improve efficiency, and we've noticed that it reduced the costs and the granting process efficiency savings to at least 30%. So it allows for a lot of the data and the business rules to be set up in the system itself. So there's less burden on the program officers to diligently look at every detail. And it also increases the reportability aspect of things. So a lot of the data, the performance reporting that are easily configurable through dashboards and reports, and I'll walk you through that as well. And it enables the implementation of a grants digital strategy in real time. So a lot of improvements are coming in the platform from Microsoft on a daily basis. A lot of that is being utilized to improve the system as the needs change of the people around, using the programs. And it's also a very user-friendly portal. We use something called as the Government of Canada's web experience toolkit, or the framework that is used. So it's also very accessible in terms of the AODA for the Ontario government, and it helps enable that automatically. And it also makes sure that it's up to date. It reduces the time of receiving critical updates, and I'll walk you through some of that as well. And it also has multiple security options. So when you log in, there's the option to provide two-factor authentication. It gives you a unique contact ID and email address and password. So things like that in terms of security options are also enabled. So in terms of a demonstration, I'm going to use a demo program. It's not a live program. It's something that we set up just for demo purposes called the Community Capacity Fund. So I'll walk you through setting up the application on the portal, doing an application assessment in the back office, looking at it from a reviewer's perspective in terms of reviewing the application, and then follow through in terms of what it means once the application is approved and funding has been provided. So I'm just going to step away from the slide deck for a moment and just show you. So this is what this is the application. So this is what the home page of someone who's logged in. Bell, for example, has logged in as an registered and logged in as an applicant, and they will see this screen. This is again configurable. This is something that we've set up for the demo environment, but all the content in terms of the text, the visual display, they're all easily configurable and they can be changed as per the client's needs. So I've started just for the demo purposes. I've already started and set up an organization for this applicant. So this applicant using this organization can put in some applications. Now, when they want to go into and start applying for a funding opportunity, what they'll do is they'll look at the available opportunities online. So for example, I can apply for the Healthy Canadians and Communities Fund or the Community Capacity Fund, but I cannot apply for the FCM fund because it's not online right now. It's something that provides the details, but the funding program itself is closed for the moment. So if I want to apply for the Community Capacity Fund, for example, I click apply, and as I mentioned before, there's a bunch of eligibility criteria that can be configured. In terms of the Community Capacity Fund, this is the eligibility criteria. And as you can see, if you don't meet the eligibility criteria, you can't proceed to the next step, which also shows that you can set up the required fields, you can set up the conditions or the validation as per what you need them to be, and then you submit. And once it's submitted, it opens up the application form because the applicant meets the eligibility criteria. They just have to confirm who they are. And then once they confirm, if you will notice in a moment, you see the application form pages now open up. So these again are very configurable. This demo program that we've set up have these pages, but we can also set up pages dependent on each program. They don't have to be like 5-6 pages. They can be multiple. They can be like 20 pages if needed, or even just one page if needed. It is also bilingual, as I mentioned. So if I change my language to French, I can also see the fields in the French language and also submit as a French application. I'm just going to go back to English. So as you can see, there's a few fields and there's different types of fields, so that's required. So, and if you notice also there's a text field. So for example, this is a text field, this is a drop down, and there's a radio button options and things like that. So there's multiple different options that can be set up in the application form itself. So example for this field, I'm just going to quit this because I'm not saving it, and I'm going to go into the next page, and you'll notice that there's different options in terms of the field that's been set up in the other page. So in this case, there's also the date selector, there's multiple validation options. So in this case, for example, I'll show you what the validation options look like. So if you see, these are a bunch of required fields. It doesn't allow you to proceed if you don't select the required fields. And the other option is also, if you notice here, like the gray icons indicate that there's required fields that need to be filled in before this can proceed. So I'll show you an example. So in this case, I'm going to put in the required information here just to show you how that looks like. And I'm going to select a value here. Put in all the required fields, validate and save. And if you notice here, another option to set up in terms of validation is the values are only allowed for a certain amount. They're not allowed beyond a certain limit. So if I modify this and say, okay, this is what I want to do, I now validate, the validation passes. And once the validation passes, if you notice, it not only updates the the percentage completion, but it also updates the icon that's displayed to show that, yes, this page is complete, all the validation has been completed. In addition to that, there's a final check on the final review page as well. And if you notice, it shows which pages are complete versus not complete. And also there is no submit button here because we haven't finished any of the other pages. So I'm going to quickly walk you through the completion of this page, this application form, I should say, and show you how I submit the form. So I'm going to just put in some values in the different fields, and you see it progresses per page. And this is another option that is available. You can also put in as a table different content. So this is something that I'm putting in manually, but there are options in terms of setting up a calculated total value as well. And these are not mandatory, so it's not going to show me an error because none of these are mandatory. But however, if I wanted to show you something that's a mandatory upload, for example, like supporting documents, for example, is mandatory, and it does tell you that you have to put minimum of 1. And if you do a validate and save, it actually shows that, hey, this is required. I cannot proceed if I don't upload a document. So just going to upload a document here and show you the validation of that rule. Shows uploaded successfully, and we use SharePoint by default to upload the documents, which allows it to be easily accessible once the document is uploaded. So as you can see, the validation passed. I'm going to also do another validation in terms of setting up the digital signature. So as you can see, this is a digital signature that's been set up where they're agreeing to the conditions and the criteria that has been met. And it what it does is it takes in their name and their declaration acceptance. So that is considered as their digital signature and date time. And that is stored in the application in the backend as well. So now, as you can see, all of the pages are full. It's all complete. And now you see the submit form. So this allows the application form to have all the mandatory information that the program needs the applicant to fill in, and reduces the burden on the program officer to identify, hey, this field is actually required, but they haven't filled it in. So this reduces that need from the program officer's manual setup perspective. So I'm just going to submit the form. It will show as submitted, for example. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what it means in the back office. So this is the portal. This is what the public sees. Now, as a program officer, what I do is I log into Dynamics 365 and I open the main app that I'm going to be using. So most of the work is done through the different apps available depending on what is being set up. So in this case, I've set up an app for funding case management. When I log in, assuming I'm the program officer, I will actually be able to see the dashboard that's been set up. And this dashboard is something that can be easily set up by anyone. There's a lot of different options available. It's easily configurable, and it is also something that can be set up per user. So I'm the program officer. I see this dashboard. I can also set up a dashboard for my manager, which looks different. There's also the option to set up dashboards and reports through Power BI. Now, Power BI has options in terms of sharing, where you have to purchase a license when you have to share. But even just not using a licensed version, you have the capability of setting up a lot of analytical data through the Power BI dashboard. So in this case, I've got dashboard showing my program submission stats, and then I also have a financial information stat. So I'm just going to expand this a bit to see what it looks like. And as it loads, if you see, so the financial information, you have the options to put in some rules where it actually shows you a certain value based on the rule that you have satisfied. So this allows a lot of flexibility in terms of setting up your data analytics, in terms of what you want to view, trend reports that you want to set up for KPI reporting and things like that. So it has a lot of flexibility there as well. Now, after I look at my dashboard, for example, I'm seeing, oh, there's a new community capacity fund that I need to look at. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the funding case for that. So in this case, what I did was this is the funding case that was submitted by the applicant, and it's in the draft state. So as soon as I open it, just going to zoom in a little bit so it's visible. I need to start a due diligence on checking that my submission has all the information. Sorry, it's just loading. Let it load. It's taking its time. Okay, yeah, there you go. I'm going to just start my due diligence on this. As the program officer, made the decision, I'm doing that. So now that I've started my due diligence, what I do is I go into my submission and I check each of the pages that are that the applicant filled in. So as you can see, anything that was filled in by the applicant on the portal is now displayed to the program officer in the back end. So this is how they do their due diligence. And I've checked, okay, all my documents are there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say the application passed, due diligence passed, and everything is as it should be. So once this is done, what we can do is there's the second step in terms of this application can now be reviewed. So I'm just going to set up a reviewer, for example, and I'll show you an example of what a review looks like. So I'm going to just set this up in terms of, oh no, I need to set it up in my submission. I'm going to set it up as a review and just going to add new review. So there you go. I have a reviewer set up already. And I'm going to say peer reviewer, and I'm going to say draft, and I'm going to close it up. So now when it comes to a reviewer, they have a different view from an applicant. They have the same homepage, for example, but what they will see extra is also reviewer profile and my reviews, which are actually not available to an applicant. So in this way, when if an organization has like different participants, like they have a contributor, they have an administrator, they have reviewers, they have other people who have different roles that need to be part of the application, they can be easily set up so that they have different views of things in terms of the same program or the same submission, for example. So in this case, my reviewer has a reviewer profile and they actually provide certain information. For example, conflict of interest is something that a reviewer has to provide in terms of saying that they are agreeing to say that they do not have a conflict of interest to review. So in this case, my reviewer has already been through the reviewer profile. What they're going to do is they're going to look at the review themselves to see if anything has been assigned. In this case, as you can see, I just assigned a new review to the person, and the review process can continue from there. So in this case, as you see, the conflict of interest agreement automatically displays. I will say I'm going to be reviewing this application because I have no problem with it, and then validate and save. Now, if you notice, only one page is displayed, reviewer acceptance, but after I agree, nope, I guess it didn't like that I didn't do it properly. Okay, it didn't work, but it's supposed to be showing other pages in terms of what it's supposed to display. So apologies for that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the next stage of the demo in terms of showing you what the submission looks like after a review. So after a review, for example, I am going to say, assuming that we've completed this review, I'm going to say review completed and funding is approved. Once the funding is approved, what the payment schedule can be set up, and it's something that has to be configured as per the department that's looking for it. And then what we can do is we can ask for an interim progress report. So you can request the applicant to say, after 6 months, for example, please provide a progress report of how you're using the funding. In this case, what happens is as soon as I've set up this decision, what happens in the application page is the review, the person who has submitted the application, I'm just going to refresh just to make sure, they will see a different page in terms of the fact that they have to provide their progress report. They actually do not see the application form anymore. They have to provide a progress report and they can upload a new document similar to how it's done. So this kind of allows kind of an end-to-end process in terms of applying for the application and going through all the way into finishing the funding, giving the funding payments, and also getting a progress report from the applicant. Now, a few more additional additional features to show, and I'll show you through this recording. So one of the features is having a chatbot. So something that is commonly used nowadays is a chatbot that provides the options in terms of the help to the applicant adding an application, for example. So in this case, there's a scenario where the applicant is trying to identify which funding programs are online right now, and then they're also asking about their eligibility in terms of a particular program. So the funding the chatbot actually provides that information depending on what the question is asked. Now, in terms of setting this up, it's still something that Microsoft is previewing, so there's a lot of different options that they're still playing around with. And it's something that is being worked on actively, but it is a great tool in terms of setting up something for the end user without having to interact one-on-one with an actual person, which again reduces some of the burden on program officers, who would probably end up also having to provide that information to the public as well. So as you can see, there's a bunch of different options that can be set up, and once the options are provided, they can either continue or discontinue in terms of what that applicant requires. The next video I'd like to show you is something that is set up in terms of AI. Now, AI is something that is commonly used in a lot of different places right now, and something that we are exploring actively as well. Something, again, that's in preview mode in terms of what Microsoft offers, but we've got a different set of things that we've been exploring. One of them is translation of text, and also sentiment analysis. So in this case, I've put in English text. I just click a button, for example, say generate translation, and it automatically translates the information into French. Now, the other information is, if I look at the text, and as a program officer, I just want to make sure that what I have written down is has a good what do you call it, language. So in this case, if you see, the project scope is a neutral assessment, but there's a negative assessment on the risk log. So this allows me as a program officer to just quickly check that the language that I've used in my summary report is positive or neutral, or like make changes depending on how it should be. So this is a great tool in terms of setting up sentiment analysis. The next one is page level amendments. A lot of times, program officers, as they're reviewing the application process, identify that there's an amendment that is required because the applicant hasn't provided the information that they're supposed to be providing. So in this case, for example, the program officer says this submission needs an amendment. What they do is they clone they copy the submission to create a new version, which then creates an incomplete version of the submitted application. And then what they do is they have the option to add amendment notes. Now, the amendment notes are dependent on the page. So in this case, I want to say project details doesn't have the right information. I'd like the applicant to actually put in the right information. So what I do is I add the notes, I run a flow, and when the applicant goes in, they see a second version of the submission, they open it, and they easily see that, hey, project details has something that is needed. So as you can see, they have the message from the program officer displayed above. They have to fill in and modify the application based on what the program officer has asked for. They have to validate and save the page again. And then what they can do is they can submit the application again because the amendment is now complete. So that is the page level amendment process, which allows the program officer to clearly identify what the application is missing, but also from applicant looking at the application itself to identify what did I miss, like to clearly identify that option. This is a great tool as well. The other option is DocuSign. So in terms of digitally signing documents, one of the options is to integrate with DocuSign. So as you can see, for this application process, for example, we've integrated with DocuSign. The system automatically navigates the user to DocuSign where they sign the document. And once this document is signed, as you can see, they can also download the option and print it or like document into a different format. They can save it as a PDF, for example. And once that document is saved, they can also upload that document into the system. I think that's about it. The other option is the other feature that we have is the adjudication process. So adjudication is where a lot of organizations have a digital jury week or something that is done from a review perspective where multiple reviewers schedule meetings, they assign jurors to that meetings, any conflict of interest is identified, and the relevant submission documents are sent to the juror in advance. So in this case, as you can see, I've set up a meeting or an appointment for April, and I've assigned a few jurors to that submission. The juror logs into the portal, they assess their conflict of interest and say they don't have a conflict of interest. And once that is done, the submission is opened up for them, and they can confirm their validity. They can look at the documents and review them and then complete the submission. So this way, it's all online. It doesn't need to be set up externally or offline. You don't have to set up meetings through the outside of the system. The system allows you to do that within the submission itself, and that allows you to have the end-to-end information for that submission. Something I already kind of showed you is a copy of an existing application. So a lot of times the applicant would is coming on a year-to-year basis, for example, and applying for funding. So instead of starting from scratch where they have to enter each and every information that is provided to them, they can come into the portal and set up the option to copy the existing application. In this case, as you can see, all the application information is already pre-populated, and this is something that can also be done in the back office where by running a flow, a new version of the document can be created, application form can be created, which can then be updated. Warning center. So something that is easily configurable and something that can be done last minute, for example, is setting up notices for downtime or maintenance on the portal. So for example, in this case, we are notifying the public in terms of the fact that on January 31st, please note that there is a downtime of the environment to do an update on the environment. And as you can see, this is a warning in terms of the fact that it's in red, and it needs to be identified clearly that this is going to be an impact on the system. But there is another option where here, as you can see, which is in blue, which is just in terms of the level of severity of the notification. Is just an information banner, for example, saying there might be labor disruptions. So there's different levels that you can warn the public about it, and it takes like 2 minutes to set this up, which is a great tool because there are a lot of times where we need to do last minute maintenance or last minute fix on the environment, for example, or something like that, or we need to give advance notice. So this allows the program officer to set this up in advance or as needed. Notification center. So similar to how we have, like, for example, CRA notifications come in, we can set up notifications that are created within the system and displayed to the user on the portal. So in this case, what I've done is I've set up a notification for the user. They log into the portal and then they can log in and see this on the portal itself. So this is something that is a good option in terms of having secure messages sent to the particular user instead of sending them via email. The system also has the option of sending emails that can be triggered or can be manually created as and when needed to notify applicants, to notify reviewers. It is a great tool in terms of giving more information. There's a structured Excel template import option as well, feature. So if there's financial data, for example, that has like a lot of information that needs to be provided, one option is to export an Excel spreadsheet from the system that allows you to enter multiple rows at the same time. So instead of individually adding each row, what you can do is export a template, fill in the information in Excel, and then import that information into the system. So the applicant doesn't have to like individually look at and log each row separately, which could take hours. Instead of that, there's the option of import and export that can be manually done. The other option in terms of AI is also having a trained model that identifies specific entries from a document and loads it into the system. So for example, I have a PDF here of an agreement which has a certain set of fields that are filled in. Now this agreement has these fields filled in. Now when I load it into the system, for example, what the AI model does is it looks at the PDF document, it identifies the key fields that are in the document and uploads it into the system. And as you can see, there's a confidence level here as well. And it identifies the confidence level in terms of setting up that extraction and making sure that between 0 and 1 what the highest confidence level is of the system. So in this case, most of the fields have been set up properly, but there might be the premises field that needs to be just confirmed by the program officer filling in the system. The next part is just an overview of the upcoming features from a Grant Plus roadmap perspective. So we invest a lot of time and effort into the product development itself, so that each time we go into a new phase of the product, or each time we start conversations with new customers, there's new features being added on and additional options that can be displayed in terms of improving the system. Now, when we set up our roadmap, we have feedback that's coming in from the clients in terms of what their needs are. But the other option is Microsoft also has a bunch of different features coming on a day-to-day basis, similar to what I showed you in terms of AI. There's the Microsoft Copilot, which allows for a lot of different possibilities in terms of improving the system. So our roadmap kind of sets that up for, we've got that set up for the roadmap for the near future. And as we had mentioned, like there are a few features that we've been exploring in terms of AI. So one is the natural language program information. So similar to the chatbot that I showed you, we want to enhance it more in terms of using natural language and setting it up as soon as the applicant or the online user sets up a question, the chatbot will respond based on an understanding of the model that has been set up. Then there's the option of pre-populating case files from applications and emails. So for example, if an email comes in, recognizing the information directly from that email and populating and creating an application in the system. Automated assessment of grant applications. So a lot of times, all of the information that's in the application, it takes a bit of time for the program officer, for example, to review each and every field. One of the AI models that we're looking at is setting up an automated assessment that will summarize the grant application and make sure that the summary is provided to the program officer, who can then review it and then do their due diligence in just confirming that the assessment has been done. Then similar to that is the auto-generated case summaries as well. So that covers our webinar for today. If you would like to contact us, these are the options in terms of how we can be contacted. And if there's any more information requested or any questions outside of what we have covered today, please don't hesitate to reach